Hello and welcome back to Evolved Models. We're continuing with part 5 of our Spitfire Mk.XVI build. For anyone following along, here's where we're up to in the instruction manual. We've got a few little bits to get on with here. There's a front fuselage bulkhead section and some sort of rear hangar that goes in the back of the aircraft. After that, we can get started with some wing assembly. The instructions call out to drill a 1mm hole in one of the fairings. I'm using a small needle drill with a 1mm drill bit in the end. As normal with the finer details, the instructions aren't too clear at what angle we need to drill this hole, so I'm just doing a test fit first to see if I can figure it out. I'm going to presume at this point that the hole should be facing forward to the fuselage as some sort of air or pressure sensor. And here we go. We don't need to press down too hard, it's only soft plastic and it's a pretty small drill bit. It's going to eat through this plastic, no problem. And there we have it, one small hole. Just needs a bit of tidying up and that'll be ready. Next up is some sort of rear hangar. I'm going to presume again that it's something to do with the flight controls. Sits inside the rear fuselage, it's made up of these two small bits. A quick dab with the old Tamiya glue will get this thing set. I'm going to leave that piece to dry, just to one side. We can get on with doing the front fairings. Here's one I prepared earlier, with the hole nicely situated. It must be said it's quite a nice fit when it goes in, a little bit fiddly, but a good fit. And we're going to follow the exact same process for the one on the other side. That rear assembly should be nice and dry now, so we can get that stuck down while we've got access to it. Actually, while looking at the angle of this thing, it may be something to do with the rear tail wheel. I guess it's where the rear wheel assembly will connect into. And now it's time for that front bulkhead which we made earlier. And to finish up, we've got this bit which the front nose cone connects to. I'm not sure if we've got a tail sitter here or a nose sitter, but once we get it together a bit more, we'll have a better idea and we can see if we need to put any lead weights anywhere, hopefully while we still got access. We seem to be picking up a head of steam now. I think it's about time we had a bit of a test fit to see how we're doing. I don't believe for 1 minute that it's going to be a perfect fit everywhere. I think there will be a little bit of putty and filler needed. But so far, it's all looking good. Okay, it's a new day. Let's have a look how far we've got. We've got the two fuselage sections, a fully built cockpit and a wing sprue that we need to do a little bit of work on. So the first task of the day is to get this wing section ready. Hopefully for the observant among you, you may notice that the lighting looks a lot better. Did a bit of searching online and on YouTube, I found a great guide of how to build a video light from LEDs specifically for video. Hopefully it should eradicate all of the flicker you get with normal LED lights. And so far, so good. I'm not seeing any weird shadows either, so hopefully it's better for you and better for me. Before we go any further, there's a small part we need to put on the inside of the fuselage here. Looks like it's some sort of radio or some sort of control inside of the cockpit, but it will be seen, so let's get on with it. It's really starting to come together now. Next thing we need to do is prime the insides and get them painted in the aircraft grey green. I'm using my normal AK Interactive microfiller primer. I'm not sure how visible the sides of this cockpit is going to be, but it looks like we need to give them a paint. Now, I don't want to mask it all off, so I'm going to take it really carefully, angling the airbrush just not to get it inside of the cockpit. If you're not comfortable doing this freehand, feel free to mask it off. Right, so now we need to put some aircraft grey green on some of these parts here. What we're going to do is, we've got the colour, wherever she is, there we go, we've got the aircraft grey green and we've got some Tamiya thinners. And what we're going to do is, I'm just going to go a little pipette. We'll get a clean pipette even. There we go. And what we're going to do, we're going to put a few drops in here. Oh, we've already got some stuff in there. Let me get rid of that. I've got some airbrush cleaner in there. So we've got an empty airbrush at the moment. I'm going to put a bob of Mk.XX in there. And the next thing we needed to do is put our pigment in there. Just line up the camera again. I'm going to line up the camera. There we go. Give it a quick shake. I've been using this a minute ago, so it doesn't need that much of a shake. And then I'm going to put some paint in there. Probably completely too much for what we need to do now, but hey ho. And what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to get a toothpick and I'm just going to give it a whiz round just to mix it all up. This is quite thin, so we're not going to need the air pressure too high. You see people online, you know, what's the perfect air pressure for, you know, for painting. It really depends on you, your airbrush, the pigment that you're using and what you're doing.
You know, if you're wanting to do fine lines and camo work and that sort of stuff, it's better to have a low pressure, quite a viscous and thin paint. We can keep the pressure down, and then you can, you know, control a lot better the flow of the airbrush. But for this, I've got it on relatively low. I'm just going to do a quick test on it, and there we go. But even with that, we can do nice lines, and it's not going to run away with us. Okay. Just like any paint, it's a case of building up the layers gently and slowly, not in a rush. Put that there for a second, we'll move on to the next one. We'll come back and give them another coat in a minute. Be very delicate here because obviously we've painted on the inside. I'm going to shoot downwards, so the canopy's there, I'm going to shoot down. I'm not going to get too close to that edge there, but I'm just going to get some paint on there. I'm just working out where the paint's lying. That's as close as I want to go, really, I think. Maybe just a chance a little bit more. There we go. I just need to flick it round, so we don't want to ruin all of our hard work. I think that's enough for the cockpit. And we're just going to give these one more coat. Just testing the airbrush again. See, it's still fine because it's nice and thin. You can do really nice wiggly lines. One. This stuff's going to dry pretty quick, so I'm just going to put that there to dry. Right, we've got some more cockpit work to do. So we need to install, see, piece of paper. We are up to that bit. So we need to get this baby. Need to get that into there. Okay, so we'll put the top of this.
a little bit proud. Might just.
It shouldn't be seen. If it is, we can always paint it a bit more afterwards.
Okay, so this has got to sit in here and in there. Oh, this is a tight fit. That goes in there. I'm wondering what the best way to do this is. Either put it in loose and then glue it once it's all set up and all together. Let's see if we can get a band around here. Okay, we'll do the lucky band trick, I think. So he's in there. Seems to be well enough seated into that bit until we get to these front bits here. So, don't want to squeeze too hard. That back looks like it'll tighten up alright. Just this front bit there, it's just going to need a bit of a squeeze. I'm thinking if we glue down here all the way up to there, and then the front, and then afterwards we come in and we do this bit at the front here, and that may be. I think that's going to be the way forward. I wonder if we can get a. It's going to need a bit of a squeeze. Maybe too much of a squeeze. We've got like a one. Okay, let's go for it. So, our usual Tamiya super thin. Let's try and get this nose in first. Let's get the nose on. I've run out of little clamps. Just going to hold that until it tacks up a bit. So, I'm going to start at the back and the front and then squeeze it through. A quick little fit together here, it looks like it should be okay. And the bottom, okay there. Bit of a gap there, but that'll come together. He says, famous last words. If we'll just sit down anymore. Let's see if we get some down here as well. Can't really rush this. Dire shortage of plastic bands at the moment. So not over tightening it by any means. But we do want it nipping up nicely. So that's in there. Not happy with that. I'm not happy with that. Put some glue in there. Because that needs to sit right in there. That will squeeze up.
into the middle. I'll try and get some down the tail here because the tail's pretty good. Just going to use the capillary action, let the glue do the work. I know you've probably heard it a million times before, but just let the glue do the work. That'll just dribble down there. A bit of a squeeze so we can get some on the top as well. I'm just using tweezers because I've got a real bad habit of touching it, just glue spewed out of it, and making fingerprint marks all over the back of it. So I'm just using these to stick it together. There we go. So we can give the cap a bit of a squeeze. Well, that one will do, I think. It does need a good squeeze, so let's see if we can get it from underneath. That's quite bad. Somebody should invent a machine for doing this. Maybe a bit aggressive. Won't do the trick though. It's quite tight, that is. But if it gets rid of our gap, as that glue melts, it should pull it all together nicely. Let's see if I can get another one around here. That's going to be alright as well. There's this little cap down here, and I'm not sure. It is. It's shown on the instructions, so I'm going to go with that. So I want it to go all the way down. Sorry if my head's in front of the camera. I really want that to get down there. And give it a bit of a door. So I can't get in underneath, but I'm hoping it's just touch it, it's going to go. It's called super thin for a reason. Too much of a step here. So this is where I end up touching it. Put the old visor on, see if it's proud. Looks alright there. I think now I just need to leave that to dry for a bit, or should I try and get some down the back? Actually, I'm going to try and get some down here. That's looking not too bad. Alright.
Okay, that. Try and get some down the back here. I can't get to it from the inside really. I think that's best left alone for a minute or two now, just to let the glue do its work. So we shall come back to this later on and hopefully it's set up and we've got a straight bird.